Today we are going to talk about how to model equations and inequalities. So here are some rules on how to model equations. So the first thing we need to know is what an equation is. So an equation has two different parts that need to be represented. You have a variable, which is the letter or the unknown amount, and you have a constant, an amount that never changes. So how we start to model the equation is we have to pick two different shapes. One to represent the variable and another to represent the constant. Example, rectangles and squares, or triangles and circles. The next rule is to pick two different ways to represent positive and negative numbers. So you can either shade for positive or non-shade for negative, or you can put a plus sign inside the shape or a subtract sign inside the shape. So here we have two different examples. Let's look at this top example first. So we have the equation x plus 3 equals 8. So it's represented by one rectangle that represents x, three little squares that represent 3, to equal 8, which is 8 little squares over here. Now at the bottom example, now we have 3 cups that have an x on the inside that represents 3x. We have 4 little circles that have a plus sign in there, meaning plus 4. Then over here we have 13 plus circles, so that is a positive 13. So now we're going to try to model some equations on our own. We are given a key up here at the top that tells us what each shape represents. A non-shaded rectangle is a positive 1x. A non-shaded circle is a positive 1. A shaded in rectangle is negative 1x, and a shaded in circle is negative 1. Since the first thing in our equation is 3x, we need to find what is a positive x represented by in our key. So we look at the top, and that is a non-shaded rectangle. So now we need to draw 3 non-shaded rectangles. Try to draw small so all of our shapes will fit. The next thing is minus 7. So we have to go up to our key and figure out what minus 7 is represented from the key. Here we have our negative 1, which is a filled in circle. So we're going to put 7 filled in circles, they don't have to be big, right next to our rectangles. Now we have our equal sign that we need to fill into our equation. And then we have a positive 5. So we go up to our key and figure out what a positive number represents. And that is a non-filled in circle. That's positive 1. So we need 5 non-filled in circles over here to represent 5. And that is how we model our equations. Here's our second example. So we have 6 minus 2x equals negative 4. So the first thing in our equation is positive 6. So we go up to our key to figure out what a positive number represents. And that is the non-filled in circle right here. So we need 6 of those non-filled in circles. The next thing is negative 2x. So we have to go up to our key and we see that a filled in rectangle is our negative x. So we need 2 filled in rectangles to represent negative 2x. It doesn't have to be perfectly shaded in, as long as you can tell it is a shaded in rectangle. Then we need our equal sign, and we need our negative 4. So we go up to our key, and we see that the filled in circle is our negative 1. So we need 4 of those to make our equation complete. So now we're going to look at some inequalities. We need to review the inequality symbols just to make sure we understand. So this first one right here is greater than. Right here we have greater than or equal to. We have less than or equal to. Now I'm going to show you how you say an inequality. So this first one right here is r is less than 7. We have it written over here just in case you needed to see it. So that this means that the answer is less than 7. The next one right here, k is greater than negative 3. This means that the answer is more than negative 3. The next one we have f is less than, and that little line underneath means equals to, negative 5. So we can read that f is less than or equal to negative 5. This means that the answer is less than negative 5, or it could be exactly negative 5. The last one, y is greater than or equal to 8. So this means that the answer is more than 8 or equal to 8. So here's a little table to help us see how we say an inequality, what the inequality looks like, and how we graph the inequality. So notice, when something is less than, it goes to the left and has a non-filled in circle. If something is less than or equal to, then it is to the left still, but a filled in circle. If something is greater than, it goes to the right with a non-filled in circle. If it's greater than or equal to the right with a filled in circle. So if something is equal to, then it has to have the filled in circle at the beginning. If it is less than or greater than with no equal to, it will be the non-filled in circle. So now we get to practice on our own. Our first example says r is less than 7. So I find where 7 is on my number line, and I want a circle. Remember, if it is not equal to, it is an open circle, meaning not filled in. Now since it is less than, I'm going to the left. So I shade my number line to the left. And I don't have to go the entire way over, but I do want to make sure that I shade it very well. That way I know which way I'm going. And then I want to include an arrow to see I could continue all the way down the number line. So here's my next example. K is greater than negative 3. So I find negative 3 on my number line, and I want to circle it. Since it is not equal to, it's going to stay open, which means I do not fill it in. Now since it is greater than, we need to shade all the way to the right. Again, make sure that the shading is dark enough that I know which way it's going. And then you want to include an arrow to let us know that it can continue all the way down the number line that way. Our next example is f is less than or equal to negative 5. So I find negative 5 on the number line and I circle it. Since it is equal to, I fill it in. It is a closed circle. I know that because of this little line right here, the equal to sign. And since it is less than, I'm going to shade to the left. And I want to make sure that arrow is nice and big so I know that my line can continue that way. The last thing we're going to look at today is y is greater than or equal to 2. So I find 2 on the number line and I circle it. Since that little line is underneath the inequality sign, that means equal to. So I fill in the circle, make it a closed circle. Since it's greater than, I shade to the right. Make sure it's nice, dark, and neat. And then I want to make sure that arrow can continue, so I know that can go all the way down the number line.